Hello, everyone. We welcome to this one of our first conversation series that we are starting. By this initiative is by WICI, Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Water Resources Council. My name is Dr. Bhakti Devi. I am the National President of the Water Resources Council of WICI. And the idea of the vision and mission of WICI's Water Resources Council is to promote inclusion of women and sustainable water management. And when we talk about inclusion of women, I often get asked that does that mean men are left out? No, that's not the way we imagine. We are talking about giving women equal partnership in influencing and making decisions on water management so that we can have a much more sustainable water world. So with that brief introduction about WICI, I would like to introduce our today's conversation that we're going to have, and we are very privileged and I'm delighted to introduce Dr. Sarika Kulkarni. Dr. Sarika, and because the topic of our conversation today is what does it take to take a water-stressed tribal community from being water-stressed to becoming water secure and water sustainable. And of course, which means Dr. Sarika Kulkarni has done a lot of work in this field. So the focus is going to be the conversation, and I'll give a brief introduction. So Sarika is a very highly trained professional, has got a master's in science from the University of Baroda, and then she's went on to do a PhD in operations management. And she also, equipped herself with a master's from AIT, Asian Institute of Technology, in CSR, clearly because she seems passionate in terms of contributing to sustainable development in a very serious way. So she and her husband co-founded Ra Foundation. And in the last 5 years of their working with the tribal communities, they have worked with 95 villages, directly impacting 25,000 community members. And that's quite an impressive, and to take it as a full-time profession is very inspiring. And I felt this is, this is great to have the conversation series started with Dr. Sarika, because what we want to do is to showcase women who have managed to influence inclusion of women and sustainable water management. So with that introduction, welcome, Sarika. Welcome to the conversation. You please unmute yourself.
Thank you so much.
So the way we'll do this conversation is that I have, kind of some questions related to the topic, and then it'll become a freewheeling conversation after that. So what we are talking today about, because the purpose is that through the conversation, we not only want to highlight and showcase the women who have been contributing, but also start to engage people on this, what seems to be a mysterious topic of sustainable water management. So with that in mind, we decided that I'm going to focus on, Sarika, your work of the work that you've been doing with tribal communities about taking them from being water stressed to becoming water secure. So one of my first questions is that, what are the characteristics of a community that is water stressed, especially in the rural context? Maybe we can start with that for the audience to understand what we're talking about.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm so glad to be here. I'm to be part of the National Council of WICI, and I'm sure together we will definitely make a lot of difference. Coming to your point, what are the characteristics of water-stressed community? We all know that water underpins all social problems. So when we say that there is water stress, we means there are all kinds of problems. Communities deep into a vicious cycle of poverty, deprivation, helplessness. They don't have enough water for drinking. They don't have enough water for bathing, washing. Clearly, they start getting a lot of health issues, skin infections. Children are malnourished. Women are anemic. Women spend hours fetching water. Their bones are affected. Men migrate because there is not enough water for agriculture, year-round agriculture. So men have to migrate. Families get destroyed in the process. and we work in tribal areas, clearly we are compromising the cultural heritage which is our tribal heritage. Migration destroys everything. So water stressed tribal community is honestly a huge blot on our country. And because I mean the communities are completely destroying. I have seen myself how the culture is getting destroyed. uh, so there are problems on all fronts.
Right. Thank you for that. Because, often we talk about these things without really getting to understand tangibly what it means. And you've seen it in real, and basically water centers everything. And that's clearly without water, you can have all sorts of problems from health to livelihood to, social, cultural, everything. So, and the next question, once you start working with these villages, how do you know that that because your mission is to become water secure and to make them water secure and water positive, what exactly do you mean by that, and how do you know that you have arrived at that, or is it a certain something that you like a destination you arrive at, or is it a journey, or and how do you know you're tracking?
Yeah. So there are a couple of points involved in this. So one most important is we call a community water secure or water positive community when enough water is available for all the needs. When we say need and we prioritize needs, the most important need is drinking water for human, drinking water for cattle, washing, water available for bathing, washing, cooking is of course much higher in priority, and then enough water available for agriculture. And even after all of this, there is enough water left. The community is never without water. When that situation comes, then we call community water secure. And it starts as a journey, because when we start working in a water stressed village, it is not like 1 year program. It takes about 2 to 3 years to get there. In the first year, water scarcity reduces by a couple of months. In the second year, it further reduces. And probably about third or fourth year onwards, we can start calling the communities water secure. Problem why this happens is because community typically ends up extracting a lot of groundwater by digging borewell, and they are going deeper and deeper with each passing year, because water is not available at 200 feet, they'll go 500 feet, they'll go 1000. As a result, even the groundwater has become extremely stressed. So once we start building this rainwater harvesting structures, recharge structures, the first what happens is lot of water percolates, and there is very limited groundwater, above groundwater left. A lot of water just percolates and it fills up the aquifers, which is the first step in making the communities water secure. So over a period of time, when water is available for all needs and agriculture becomes year round, only then we call it a water secure community, a water positive community. And there are multiple facets to this. One, of course, is most important is improving the supply side of water, which is like by building rainwater harvesting structures, recharge structures, check dams, open wells, etc. The most actually the work starts after that. Once supply is there, then real work starts. Then we have to start working on controlling demand. Then we have to start working on ensuring water use efficiency. And
Right.
then we have to start ensuring that there is limited dependency on water. I mean, there are other vocations available in the rural areas which are not water dependent. Like,
Right.
for example, when we think rural, we think agriculture. We
Yes.
think that there is no other vocation or there is nothing else available. But we have managed to, through Ra Foundation, we have managed to create several other opportunities for tribals which are
Right.
not water dependent.
Okay.
And that's how then slowly, the whole journey evolves, and then we reach the destination, which is the
Sure.
water secure community.
Sure, great. And so what I would like to also do now is to really understand, how does it all start when you, so take us through a journey of a typical village, tribal village that you get started with. What's the first step that you do, and what kind of interventions you are introducing along the way, and how do you make those decisions? So take us through that journey of the first step and onwards.
So the first and most important step in our journey begins with the community buy-in. It has to be a bottom-up approach. Unless the community is ready to ensure that the water we create or water we the supply of water we improve is then well guarded, we don't work there.
Right.
And how do we ensure that? Is basically we believe in change without charity. Ra Foundation, actually all the programs are change without charity. In case of water, we understand that when we build check dams or we build rainwater harvesting structures or we build recharge structures, they are capital intensive and community does not have money to contribute. So then we request the communities to contribute in labor, because then once that skin in the game comes, then it becomes it becomes community's wealth, because they have labored for that.
Yes.
So the first step is community buy-in. The community has to invite us to work in their village. Community has to give us in writing that they will contribute in labor.
Right.
Once that happens, then we sit together with the community and actually do a power walk. What do we mean by power walk? Power walk is actually we walk through the entire village and we do GPS mapping of all the existing streams, nature-based, whether they are streams, they are natural ponds, there are any check dams built by government which are dilapidated, there are what kind of wells are there, any recharge structures, is there any location where water naturally gets collected, when there is rain. So we actually map all of these structures.
Right.
And once we do the mapping, we come back to the drawing board and then we actually create that that vision for the village, that what will be the which are the ones where do we need to deepen the streams, do we need to widen the streams, do we need to desil the dam, is the wall broken, and then we create a budget, and that's how whole work starts.
Right. And in this,
but the whole focus
yes,
the focus is really on nature-based solutions,
okay,
preferably nature-based solutions, and whatever man-made solutions structures are available, repairing them. Right. We are not very for building large dams and stuff like that,
Sure. So in all this process, where does the role of the government, because I believe there are quite a lot of government schemes that are also helping the rural communities. So is there an engagement that happens with the government machinery and the government officials or the village level, governance system? And if so, what
we have been very fortunate. Yeah, absolutely. We have been very fortunate that the local government in Palghar district is very, very passionate, and they are very cooperative. They like, for example, some of the dams that we really rebuild are owned by the government, and when we approach the government, they absolutely, without any issues, they give us permission that yes, please go ahead, do it, etc. And talking about government schemes, so there are lots of effort which is co-created alongside the government. Like, for example, if the government says that for this particular village, our budget is say about 1 lakh rupees, and the total budget for that particular village is more, then the government chips in with 1 lakh rupees and we put the rest. So, we have been co-creating solutions along with the government, where we are trying to use these schemes which are meant for the village. And ours are, it's a tribal area, so it comes under PESA Act, which is the Government of India Act for tribal enhancement or upliftment of tribal areas.
Right.
So we come under PESA Act, and after PESA also there are lots of schemes. So we try and use the government schemes wherever possible. Wherever not possible, we try and get government's buy-in to work on government owned properties, etc., etc. But we have been very fortunate that we have been supported a lot by the government.
Right. And I also understand that you do involve the support of the CSR. So how does that interact? Does it conflict, or is there an easy integration and synergy? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So we have been again quite fortunate that we have worked with some of the very well-known CSRs like Deloitte, Shambhu Palunji, and we are currently working with Azim Premji Philanthropic Initiative, and they have actually supported us to make 3 very large villages water secure. That is the mandate they have given us.
Right.
And so there are lots of CSRs which are working on water, which we are very fortunate actually. And ultimately this is one of the key problem areas our country is facing and is going to face. And I'm happy that CSRs are coming forward to support such initiatives.
Right. And what
We have
kind?
had amazing experience.
Right. And so one of the things that I often feel that whenever the watershed management programs like what you're talking about happen, the demand side is not as much paid attention to, but you did mention that once you put in place the supply side structures, you start focusing on demand. What kind of response and what kind of interventions you do or you explore at the demand side? And how is the response of the community to that?
Sure. So what we do is that, so our water program is called Malhar, because named after the Indian Rag.
Right.
So what we do is we create this Malhar Samitis in the village, and Malhar Samiti is a village level water governance, water management committee,
Right.
where mandatorily 50% women, and women could be more, but at least 50% should be women, and the rest men. And this is a local village level committee which is responsible for the water of the village. And it then this committee then puts in place rules and regulations about water usage. That is, how much water should each household draw. They also allocate timings for the village for the women to actually come to the well, so that at one time there is not too much rush at the well, etc. Because again, what we have done is we have also allocated water structures with usage, like well is exclusively for drinking, and this also rules are then the Malhar Samiti ensures that these rules are followed strictly. Then cattle, etc., can drink from the check dam. Bathing, washing also is usually on streams or rivers which flow nearby. And agriculture is primarily either check dam or bore wells, but bore wells have to be, we always build a recharge structure with the bore well. So it's not only one-sided, but we also, we have always been building recharge structures. So then the Malhar Samiti ensures that well is only used for drinking water, check dam is only used. So, this that is one thing. Secondly, whether any marriage can take place in the village, any construction activity, they have to take permission from the Malhar Samiti. Quarterly, water levels are tracked by the Malhar Samiti, so they know how much water is left. So we have actually taught them to do entire mathematics of water management. That each household requires so much drinking water, so much cattle requires, so much agriculture requires. There's a whole Excel sheet which we actually teach in Malhar Samiti.
Right. And what about the choice of crops that impact on the water required for the irrigation? Do you also get into that level of detail, or or because it would be quite challenging to get them to look at the crop patterns?
So we have been actually, so we have a very large agri program also. Under agriculture program, we work now. See, these tribals are not historically farmers. So they have never been farmers. They have only been doing rice and ragi and then migrating. That has been, or they will collect the produce from the forest and sell that. So they have not been historically farmers, which has actually come to our advantage, because they really don't know what to, now water is available, but they don't know what to do with the water.
Right, and nothing to unlearn.
Exactly. Absolutely. So that has been to our advantage. But we have also mandated drip irrigation. We don't work with farmers if they are not willing to, install a drip irrigation system in the village. That is something which we are very, very particular about.
Right. So one more thing is, what exactly do you track over time to see that whatever you've done is making an impact? What kind of things do you measure? Is there any quantified measurement you do, or is it just a general overall well-being? How do you know that your actions are
both actually? Yeah, absolutely. Both quantifiable and qualitative measurements also. So we track work on both the fronts. In terms of quantitative measurement, the number of hours spent by the women in filling water for the entire household. That is the number one criteria that we tap, and then it feels so amazing that up to last year she was spending 8 hours per day, in the month of May. And this year she's spending 2 hours, and next year she will only spend 15 minutes. So when this graph actually comes down, that's the day we feel so overjoyed. So that is one. The second criteria that we track is, of course, improved health, which is more of a qualitative criteria than a quantitative criteria. But another quantitative criteria that we track is migration, decreased migration of farmers. Because now water is available. So how many farmers actually are now doing year-round farming and have stopped migration? So that's another very important criteria that we track. And of course, overall economic development of the village, how has the local village level GDP improved? So, so all of that.
Fantastic. So one question I do have is that often when we talk about water management, of course, the focus being that it's rainwater management in the rural context. But how do you? Is there a way you also integrate the sewage or the wastewater and the toilet facilities? How are they interconnected and integrated into the scheme, or is it not? Is it not part of your scope?
So it is not part of our scope, but we cannot ignore that completely, while it is not directly linked to our scope of work. But so we have been creating awareness about, now every household has actually built toilets, areas where we have created water secure communities. Usage of, it has more or less become open defecation free, because now they have water for, using in the toilet also. But there are areas where defecation is still very rampant, but that is something which we have so far kept out of. But I'm sure there's a very thin line between this water and that water, so
absolutely
we have to cross that line soon.
Sure. So the sanitation is it needs to be integrated in terms of the way, but of course it's a very different challenge. But what you're saying is that even though the rainwater management is improved, there is still room to improve the sanitation aspect. Okay. Great. I think we are close to the time that we had allocated, but I do have some time to read out the comments and any questions which people have posted. So Simar has mentioned about nature-based solution is the way to go. And what was the name of the scheme that you mentioned in your thing that I think Azim Premji Foundation is helping you to promote? You want to?
So this is a government scheme actually. This is a central government scheme called PESA, PESA, PESA Act.
Okay.
And under that, and this is across India, all tribal areas it is applicable to. So where you have predominantly tribal, this scheme is applicable. And under this, actually, government has allocated a lot of money for upliftment of tribal areas, and water is one of the important element of this.
Okay, fantastic. Great. I think any other comments? We have some time, few minutes, 2-3 minutes. So you can post, and also for all the viewers, as I said, at the moment we have kept it close to our own members, and I will be, reaching out to each of you, and you can also put your hand up to talk because every week we will have one conversation with one of you, so that we are helping showcase, and that's a way for us to learn about each other. But at the same time, once we have recorded this, we are making it available on social media, so the conversation this can continue on those pages. So it is not the end of the conversation, but beginning. So I think keeping that in mind, please share your comments and questions on the social media pages so that it gets promoted. Not only the people, the members of our council, but also the work they are doing needs to get promoted. So my last question, speaking of the work to be promoted, what would be your call to action for those viewers watching this program?
Water is, as I began with, water underpins all social problems, and let me also end with that.
Yes.
Water underpins all social problems, and currently, while the rural communities are water stressed, time is not far when even us living in large cities also will face the heat. So before that time comes, I think all of us should be very, very serious about not only our water footprint, control our water footprint, but importantly support organizations that are working on creating water surplus communities, that are working on harvesting rainwater. So I think every single person should support such organizations, contribute your bit and support such organizations.
So
and
please,
I'm sure the National Council will, all of us coming together is the one big step in this
Yes.
direction.
Absolutely. And so, Sarika, what we will be doing is please share with us the link to your you may have a page for, collecting donation or asking people support. So we would like to put that link on those media pages when we are sharing the talk, so that after listening to the talk, people can go to the link and, participate and volunteer for your program. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you all for coming along for the first conversation. And look forward to more of these water conversations with women at the center. Okay, so I think I'll close here and hope to see you all at the social media pages, because please do participate so more can can watch the program. Okay, bye.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.